Food storage videos are everywhere. You've probably watched plenty of them. And most of them focus on the same basic advice. Buy some rice, beans, canned goods, freeze-dried meals, maybe a few survival buckets, and you're ready for anything. But there's one major thing a lot of those videos don't talk about enough. What happens when somebody in your family can't eat those foods? Building a food supply is not just about calories and shelf life. It's about making sure the food you store is actually safe and usable for everyone in your household. If someone has a serious food allergy, a sensitivity, or even a dietary restriction, then your storage plan has to look very different. In my own family, this is something I've had to think about. My son has an egg allergy, and my wife has a gluten sensitivity. It means that a lot of the common foods people recommend for emergencies don't automatically work for us. Some things that look convenient on the surface can actually create a major problem when you look closer at the ingredients. So when you're building your family's food storage, you have to think beyond just does this last a long time? You also have to ask, can everyone in my house safely eat this? In the United States, there are 9 major food allergens that manufacturers are required to identify. Those include milk, eggs, fish, crustacean shellfish, tree nuts, peanuts, wheat, soy, and sesame. But before we go further, it's important to understand the difference between an allergy and an intolerance or sensitivity. A true food allergy involves the immune system. For some people, exposure can cause mild symptoms like itching or hives. For others, it can lead to a life-threatening reaction called anaphylaxis. The severity depends on the person and their specific allergy. A food sensitivity or intolerance is different. It may not be life-threatening, but it can still make someone extremely uncomfortable. For example, someone with gluten sensitivity might experience headaches, stomach issues, fatigue, or other symptoms after eating gluten. It may not send them to the hospital, but it can still have a major impact on their quality of life. When you're storing food for a family member with a serious allergy, you have to be much more careful than just reading the front of the package. You need to check every ingredient label and also pay attention to manufacturing warnings. A product might not list peanuts as an ingredient, but if it was made in a facility that also processes peanuts, there could be a risk of cross-contamination. For someone with a severe allergy, that warning matters. One general rule when it comes to emergency food is that the more convenient and complete the meal is, the more likely it is to contain multiple allergens. That's why some of the most popular prepper foods can actually be the most difficult to work around. Freeze-dried meals are a perfect example. Those big buckets of freeze-dried entrees are popular because they're lightweight, easy to prepare, and can last for years. But a single pouch might contain several common allergens at once. You could find milk, wheat, eggs, and soy all in one meal. And just because one flavor from a company is safe, doesn't mean another flavor will be. A chicken meal might be completely different from a pasta meal or breakfast meal. Every single variety needs to be checked. Another area to watch is MREs. A lot of people think of an MRE as one complete food item, but it's actually a collection of different components. You might have an entree, crackers, spreads, desserts, drink mixes, and snacks, all inside the same package. Each individual item can have different allergens. The crackers may contain wheat. The spread may contain milk. The dessert may contain eggs or nuts. Looking at only the outside packaging isn't enough. You have to examine each piece. Powdered dairy products are another obvious one. Powdered milk, powdered butter, and cheese powder are common in long-term food storage because they add flavor and calories. But if someone has a milk allergy, these products are an obvious problem. Then there are wheat-based staples. For many preppers, wheat berries, flour, and pasta are the foundation of their food storage. They're affordable, versatile, and can last a very long time when stored properly. But for someone avoiding gluten or wheat, those foods are not an option. And wheat doesn't only show up in obvious places. It can hide in canned soups, sauces, gravy mixes, crackers, bouillon cubes, and many freeze-dried meals. Another common problem area is protein and snack bars. These seem like perfect emergency foods because they're compact, calorie-dense, and easy to store. But many of them contain several allergens, including peanuts, almonds, cashews, milk, eggs, or soy. Nut mixes and nut butters are another one. Peanut butter is one of the most popular emergency foods because it's inexpensive, filling, and has a decent shelf life. But for someone with a peanut allergy, it's obviously dangerous. Even some ration bars, including survival bars designed for boats and emergency kits, can contain allergens. Many rely heavily on wheat-based ingredients, and some may also contain coconut. The more processed and complicated a food is, the more carefully you need to inspect it. For families dealing with allergies, one of the best strategies is often moving away from prepared meals and focusing more on individual ingredients. Instead of buying a bucket filled with meals you may or may not be able to eat, you build a pantry around simple foods that you know are safe. Let's look at some of the biggest allergens and possible alternatives. Egg is a major one for my family because of my son's allergy. Eggs can appear in a surprising number of foods. They're common in freeze-dried breakfast meals, baked goods, pancake mixes, sauces, mayonnaise, and even some products marketed as egg substitutes. If you use eggs for baking or as a binder, there are alternatives. For binding things like burgers, cookies, and quick breads, ground flaxseed can work. You can mix 1 tablespoon of ground flax with 3 tablespoons of water and allow it to sit for about 5 minutes. It creates a gel-like texture that can replace 1 egg. Chia seeds can work in a similar way. Another option is a cornstarch mixture. 1 teaspoon of cornstarch mixed with 3 tablespoons of water can replace 1 egg in certain recipes. For recipes that need structure and volume, aquafaba can be useful. Aquafaba is the liquid from canned chickpeas, and 3 tablespoons can replace 1 egg. It's especially useful because it can actually be whipped like egg whites for certain recipes. Applesauce, pumpkin puree, and mashed banana can also replace eggs in some baked goods when moisture is what you need. But if you're storing flaxseed or chia seeds, store them whole rather than already ground. Once seeds are broken down, their shelf life decreases much faster. Next is wheat and gluten. This is one of the hardest ones for preppers because wheat products are everywhere. Wheat berries, flour, pasta, crackers, canned soups, sauces, and many convenience foods contain gluten. One of the simplest alternatives is rice. White rice is inexpensive, easy to prepare, and can store for decades when packaged correctly. Gluten-free flour is another option, but there is a challenge. Gluten-free flour generally doesn't store as long as traditional wheat flour. Instead of lasting several years under ideal conditions, many gluten-free flours have a much shorter usable life. If you store gluten-free flour, using proper packaging like Mylar bags and oxygen absorbers is important, and rotating through it regularly is a good idea. Another great substitute is gluten-free pasta. When properly stored, many gluten-free pastas can last nearly as long as regular pasta. They can be used in many of the same recipes, and with the right sauce. Most people won't even notice much difference. Dairy is another common concern. Milk allergies and lactose intolerance are 2 different things, but both can affect food storage choices. Milk is found in powdered milk, cheese powders, butter products, creamy freeze-dried meals, and even some instant mashed potato products. One possible substitute is coconut milk powder. It can be mixed with water and used in many recipes. However, remember that coconut is classified as a tree nut by the FDA, so it may not work for everyone. For a cheesy flavor, nutritional yeast is another popular option. For cooking fats, alternatives include coconut oil, olive oil, and shelf-stable plant-based butter products. Soy is another allergen that hides in many foods. It can appear in textured vegetable protein, soy sauce, meat substitutes, packaged meals, and many processed foods. Instead of relying on soy-based protein, you can use canned meats, beans, lentils, split peas, or combinations like rice and beans. Rice and beans together provide a complete protein source, which is one reason they've been a staple food around the world for generations. For spreads, sunflower seed butter is a great alternative to peanut butter. Speaking of peanuts and tree nuts, these are some of the most serious allergens. They appear in trail mixes, granola bars, nut butters, desserts, and some prepared meals. Sunflower seed butter is one of the closest replacements for peanut butter. It has a similar texture and works in many of the same ways. Many sunflower seed butter products are specifically made for people avoiding common allergens. But you should still check labels because manufacturing practices vary. Fish and shellfish are another area where people need to be careful. These are separate allergies. Someone may be allergic to shrimp, but able to eat certain types of fish. Or the opposite. Seafood can hide in places people don't expect, including Caesar dressing, fish sauce, oyster sauce, imitation crab, seafood seasoning, and some broths. Even canned fish is not automatically safe for someone with a fish allergy. Processing does not guarantee that all allergenic proteins are removed. If someone has a fish or shellfish allergy, The safest approach is usually avoiding those products completely. Finally, sesame has become one of the newest major allergens recognized in the United States. Sesame can be found in hummus, tahini, breads, hamburger buns, crackers, chips, spice blends, and salad dressings. It can be especially tricky because sesame is sometimes added to gluten-free products to improve texture. Alternatives for hummus-style foods can include white bean puree blended with lemon and cumin. Sunflower seed butter can also replace tahini in many recipes. The biggest lesson when building food storage around allergies is that your plan needs to be customized for your household. In my family, we've moved away from many freeze-dried meals because so many contain ingredients that don't work for us. A lot of breakfast varieties especially contain eggs or wheat. We also focus more on storing individual ingredients instead of relying on ready-made prepper meals. That approach actually has several advantages, even if nobody in your family has allergies. When you store ingredients, you have more control over what goes into your meals. You can create recipes your family already enjoys, and you're not depending on the quality or taste of commercial emergency meals. Food storage isn't just about having a large amount of food sitting on a shelf. It's about having food that your family can actually use when it matters. A pantry full of foods that someone in your household cannot safely eat isn't really a prepared pantry. Take the time now to check labels, understand ingredients, and build a system that works for the people you're protecting. Because when an emergency happens, the last thing you want to discover is that the food you